down at King Street Station with Frank Abe, who's author of the graphic novel We Hereby Refuse, Japanese-American Resistance to Wartime Incarceration. And we're just going to talk about this powerful account of courage and confrontation and the lessons it offers us today. So, Frank, when and where does this story begin?
Well, the graphic novel begins with a knock on the door at the Jimakutsu's home on First Hill with the arrest of his father. Kiyosuke Kutsu was just a cobbler, a shoe repairman with a shop here in Chinatown. And his only wrong in the eyes of the government was to subscribe to a Japanese language magazine that was on J. Edgar Hoover's subversive list. So he was arrested 2 months after Pearl Harbor, and then brought here to the Federal Immigration Detention Station next to King Street Station, held there for several weeks, and then 150 men who had been arrested in Seattle marched down Airport Way, down here to the train platform at King Street Station, and loaded onto trains along these tracks with 3 barred windows, 3 train cars, bound for the Department of Justice Alien Internment Camp in Fort Missoula, Montana. But the story begins here in the pre-dawn hours of March 1942, where I found this photograph taken by the Seattle Times of the scene. I mean, the media had been alerted to witness this scene, and it is a dramatic scene of men being put in the train on one corner of the frame, and the other side, you can see the arms of their wives and children reaching through the iron bars, much like these here, screaming out goodbyes in both Japanese and English. And it was a scene not unlike those we saw along the southern border, or with family separations under the last administration. So there is that direct parallel, family separation. But in our experience, in the Japanese American experience, World War II was one of family separation, but in reverse. In our case, it was our fathers who were separated from their families and taken away for months, and in Akutsu's case, 2 years. So when I saw that photo in the Seattle Times, I knew it would be central to the story and to the emotional arc of the graphic novel.
And why did you choose graphic novel as the medium? How did that come about?
Well, with a graphic novel, we could match the epic sweep of a movie at a fraction of the production cost. The Wing Luke Museum had the vision of creating 3 graphic novels, got a grant from the National Park Service to create a series of novels, the first of which was Nisei Soldiers, drawn by Masasaki, written by poet Larry Matsuda, and the second was Camp Resistance, and the third is going to be one on white allies, Hagujin allies, drawn by Kiku Hughes and written by my friend Ken Mochizuki. That'll come out later, I think, in the fall. So it's a series of 3 graphic novels and we were commissioned. I mean, it was basically a call for proposals, and the 4 of us responded to the call. Co-writer Tamiko Nimura and artists Ross Ishikawa and Matt Sasaki. The color drawings that you'll see in the Seattle Times are drawn by Ross Ishikawa here in Seattle. He's a video animation expert with offices not far from here.
The story seems to be, it's a documentary, but it feels very, very personal. Is there, I mean, it sends shivers down my spine when I read it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
I mean, it's really wonderful. It's really extraordinary. But there's a deep vein of kind of a personal experience here that you're addressing.
Well, yes, and I appreciate. I'm glad it had that effect. It's all drawn from the events of World War II in Seattle, and it's also drawn from my personal experience. My personal experience here at King Street Station is threefold. My father, 1937, before World War II, immigrated from the southern island of Kyushu in Japan, and was detained here at the immigration detention station for 3 weeks himself, and was questioned. And there were questions about his papers, which were, quite frankly, legitimate questions. And it was actually a translator named Jack Yasutake who helped spring my father. And we don't know how, or what stories he told, or what strings he pulled, but he got my father out when he really shouldn't have been, quite frankly, and took him to his home in Beacon Hill, where my father took a communal Japanese ofuro bath with his daughter Mitsuye and his other kids. And Mitsuye Yamada would grow up to be one of our foremost Nisei poets. It's a complete sidebar. But my father was brought from the detention station. Jack Yasutake brought my father, bought him breakfast, took him down to King Street Station here, put him on one of these trains south to California, where my father had some contacts lined up, and where I should have been born, quite frankly, Gene, in San Jose, California. But instead, as a 16-year-old kid, too young for the draft, was uprooted and sent to Heart Mountain, Wyoming, in incarceration camp. And then after the war, resettled by the WRA, War Relocation Authority, to Cleveland, Ohio. So I was born in the Midwest for no good reason other than the wartime incarceration, racial exclusion of the West Coast, and resettled the government's policies of dispersing our community after the war to the Eastern Midwest. Okay, that's the first connection I have to King Street State. The second connection, of course, is both John Okada, the novelist, and Jim Akutsu, the character in the novel. Both their fathers were brought through here, King Street Station, on the morning in March of 1942 and put in the train for Missoula, Montana. John Okada, the novelist, author of No No Boy, would then grow up, become a librarian at the Seattle Public Library, Detroit Public Library. In Detroit, he writes the novel No No Boy, about a draft resistor who is based on not the personality, but the history of his friend Jim Akutsu. So the connections are so strong for me. And No No Boy, in fact, opens here at the clock tower of King Street Station in 1946 or 47 with Jim Akutsu, a.k.a. Ichiro Yamada, arriving on a bus from after serving a prison sentence at McNeil Island for draft evasion. Returns here, gets off the bus, and that's where the novel starts.
So you have a passage to read to us, maybe from No No Boy.
Well, No No Boy is a classic of not just Japanese American or Asian American, but American literature. It's in a lot of your Times readers will recognize it from perhaps their high school classes here at Franklin High School or Garfield High School, where it was taught for many decades, because it's a great book. And I encourage everyone to pick up No No Boy by John Okada, University of Washington Press. But the book, the novel opens here at King Street Station, Chapter 1. 2 weeks after his 25th birthday, Ichiro got off a bus at 2nd and Main in Seattle. Right? He had been gone 4 years, 2 in camp and 2 in prison. Walking down the street that autumn morning with a small black suitcase, he felt like an intruder in a world to which he had no claim. It was just enough that he should feel this way, for, of his own free will, he had stood before the judge and said that he would not go in the army. At the time, there was no other choice for him. That was when he was 23, a man of 23. Now, 2 years older, he was even more of a man. Christ, he thought to himself, just a goddamn kid is all I was. Didn't know enough to wipe my own nose. What the hell have I done? What am I doing back here? Best thing I could do would be to kill some son of a bitch and head back to prison. He walked toward the railroad depot, where the tower with the clocks on all 4 sides was. It was a dirty-looking tower of ancient brick. It was a dirty city, dirtier, certainly, than it had a right to be after only 4 years. And that's the opening of John Okada's novel, No No Boy. I can't go to a Mariners game, without coming back here and seeing the clock tower lit up at night, and just feeling the resonance of both Jim Akutsu and John Okada's lives, and the power of Okada's imagination in evoking this scene 10 years after the war, when he's in his home in Detroit, raising his kids and working at the Detroit Public Library, and conceiving of this novel about his friend Jim Akutsu as a proxy for the spirit or the integrity of Japanese America, and how it had been deformed by the experience of racial exclusion that started here in Seattle at King Street Station.
Wow.
It's it's a story that I've lived with for 40 years, ever since Sean Wong, Frank Chin rediscovered it, excerpted it in the classic 1974 anthology IE, an anthology of Asian American writers, also published by UW Press, reprinted. And I just encourage everyone to pick it up and check it out.
Great. Well, thank you, Frank Abe, for joining us down back at King Street Station.
It's always great to be here. It's an emotional anchor for me here in my adopted hometown of Seattle, as you can tell.
Thanks, Frank.
Of course, Gene.